This is not a Maustria report. This is another of my Kriegspiel reports of an incident that I was involved in recently, and the Battle of Winchester, 1864. We're in the American Civil War, and I'm playing my role as Brigadier General Emery, commanding 19 Corps, XIX Corps. I've got 2 divisions under my command. There are different players commanding each of the divisions, and so my job is to interface between the Army Commander, General Sheridan, and my division commanders, and see if we can beat some dirty rebs. So this is the general plan of Winchester. North is to the right in this plan. You can see the big red arrow is where we were all meant to arrive, or at least my corps and 6th Corps. But I saw that there was a road leading off to the right from a similar beginning point, and I said to General Sheridan, how about I march my corps up that road, come in over the river, and then we can march on the parallel lines. You can see sort of 2 roads leading north from, well, not north, that's west because it's upside down, sideways, and we would march the 2 corps side by side up those parallel lines. Well, that was the plan, and eventually that happened. So at 07:30, the rest of the army moved in at 7 o'clock, I think, but 07:30 my corps starts to appear there. You can see it's appearing. 7:45, we've crossed the little creek, we're heading up the hill, and I ordered my leading division commander to send some scouts into the woods at the top of the hill, fearing there might be rebels there, and it turned out there was. So well done to that division commander for doing as I was told him to do, and we got into a firefight with some rebs. And so we started deploying. My 2nd division is the larger of the 2 divisions, started deploying to the left. You can see the 1st division on the right of the screen there at the end of the column. They're still in their way in. Yes, and so it's by 8:30 we're having a full-on fight. So my division's engaged with a full rebel division opposite us, and the guns aren't yet involved. And so I gave some orders to the division to fall back a bit so that his artillery could start to fire, which he did. Again, very good commander, does as he's told, which means that the enemy then is suddenly being outflanked, and they stepped forward to match us, and we suddenly had them on the flank and starting to drive them back. So with that well in hand, I rode over to 1st Division to give some orders to him to make sure he knew what was going on, and start deploying his division. By about 09:30, the rebels had been destroyed or driven back, and so I issued some orders again to tell my commanders what to do, 1st and 2nd Division. It turned out later that 1st Division had gotten very confused and had marched way off the map to the north and took some ages to come back. But at this time I started getting reports from 6th Corps. You can see in the bottom right there's some guns firing in the bottom left. That's cavalry guns firing on the enemy, and down bottom right, cavalry again. Not guns, just cavalry. Maybe they are artillery. Anyway, it's hard to tell. And I was getting messages saying that 6th Corps was being hardly pressed and that there was an enemy formation moving between me and 6th Corps. So I said to 2nd Division, I will take half the command. I'll take 2 brigades and march south. You take the rest, form a line there at A, and hold until further orders. Well, that takes a little while to do. That's my plan, telling the umpires what I plan to do with my units. This is me marching towards the sound of the guns, and again, what we're going to do when we get across the river and how we're going to deploy. We get across there, and it turns out that the force that's been attacking 6th Corps has been driven off. So just the threat of my arrival on his flank was enough to send that rebel commander fleeing. And so we start marching on. And then it suddenly turns out that 2nd Division has decided to ignore my orders and march to where I've told them to go. So I was sternly rebuked my division commander and told him to return to his position, that he had caused confusion and delay, which, as those who love Thomas the Tank Engine will know, is the worst thing you can say to any person. If they've caused confusion and delay, that is the worst insult you can heap upon them. And so he went away sheepishly to restore his lines. They now issued some more orders. I'm going to march the half of the division up to that hill there, which is the Schoolhouse Hill, and he's to move his formation back through the woods to seize that other hill. Well, we went on doing that, and that's all good. So marching along, get to the Schoolhouse Hill, and there's no enemies nearby. The cavalry are well in front of me. The cavalry are reporting. This is General Torbert's cavalry in front of me, telling me all sorts of wonderful and good things about where the enemy are. So I decided to leave my half of the division here at the Schoolhouse Hill and return them back to their division commander. We've got orders to march south. And I decided to ride over to 1st Division to see what they're up to. Well, when I get to 1st Division, I find them charging down from a very steep hill into some retreating rebel formations and fighting them and blowing them up and doing all sorts of things. They ordered a bayonet charge there, and apparently caught the rebels quite off guard. And so by 11:30 hours, 1st Division have actually, well, destroyed whole chunks of rebel units and have actually killed the enemy commanding officer. So General Early, being played by Special Zendos, was killed in this encounter, and it was troops under my command acting against my orders that killed him. So well done to that division commander, but do as you're told next time. Well, as it turned out, that was all well and good. Taken a whole bunch of prisoners. 2nd Division is there as well. We're all moving along. Everything's going great. And then we receive orders from General Sheridan saying, right, this is the plan. I want your corps to move up there, move to the west along this road, and meet up with the Army of West Virginia, because I haven't mentioned that yet. So 6th Corps is on my left somewhere, and the Army of West Virginia is somewhere to my right. They're another corps equivalent formation, but given the title of an army. They're up there to the north. We're to move up this big long road, encountering the enemy, meet up with the Army of the West Virginia, and attack Winchester to the south together. Well, that's all well and good, and I start issuing orders and sending maps to people and coordinating things and getting the cavalry to go and scout the road and do all those sorts of things. And what do you know? General Sheridan turns up, and my divisions are already started marching up the road. We've got the prisoners being escorted to the rear, as long as apparently the body of General Early. And General Sheridan goes, no, ignore all that. Change that plan. We're not doing that anymore. I want you to turn around and march back to alongside with 6th Corps and attack Winchester from the west. So I said, yes, sir. How many bags full, sir? Turn my divisions around, get them going, send letters back to the Army of West Virginia and to the cavalry saying, hey, we're not coming anymore. We're going back the other way. So that's fine. These things happen. Hurry up and wait, etc. And so my divisions move back down and all the rest. And we march and we march and we march over some hills and up and down some dales. And you can sort of see General Sheridan down there. He's scouting the way ahead like a good army commander. And I arrive at what we're going to call the North Knoll in a moment. General Sheridan is scouting them out, and he says the enemy's just up there. So I give orders to deploy the divisions, and then we start shooting at the enemy. And there's some rebels up there and some breastworks, some lines of defenses. And we start deploying. And this is all well and good. The enemy have entrenched. Oh no. There's one thing I hate as an American Civil War gamer, is when the enemy have trench lines. It becomes very tedious. Our guns start deploying, the divisions start deploying, and then it turns out that the enemy have guns hidden in those breastworks. And they start firing grape at us, which is lovely, or canister at least. And so we have I have a bit of a tussle backwards and forwards about the GM, about the fact that there are guns there, and I didn't know, and that's all fine and good. At this point, I get a report from General Talbot, the cavalry commander, showing his sketch of what the enemy defenses around Winchester look like. You can see sort of those blue arrows there are where my division actually are. The southern of the two blue arrows is where the XIX Corps is. I think the X on the map showed where his cavalry was. So this was his picture. He could see all the enemy defenses and where they were. This was fabulous because it was clear to me that the defenses immediately to my front were isolated. And so I order my divisions to move up through the woods and attack them from the side. 6 Corps on my left. We still don't know where the Army of West Virginia is. It's somewhere up and to the right. 1st Division will hold and form where it is with the guns. We'll blast the enemy. And so here's my divisions moving off to the side, and the guns are firing away, and some infantry are falling back, and all things are going very well. And it's much the same thing. So at 2:30, I think we start getting fired upon by some other guns in different places. So it's 2:45. And at 3 o'clock, I arrive up with 2nd Division, who've done the job. They've flanked the enemy defenses and have driven them off. But at the same time, the enemy, the rebels, have left their trench lines that are coming out to attack us. Well, butter my bum and call me a biscuit, I think is the expression. That was quite a surprise. So here they come. And so my orders are form lines, hold the position, take that last fort. Let's bring the guns up here. Let's smash them. They've come out of their breastworks. This is ideal. We'll destroy them on the open field. Only 3 units coming up against us. Well, of course, it's not 3 units. And a whole bunch more rebels start appearing. And so the whole 2nd Division's engaged. 1st Division's engaged, trying to take the other breastworks to the left. And you can sort of see in the top right that there's an image saying that there are more rebels coming to take the flank. So from 3:15, 3, the smoke starts closing in and you can't see as much. There's just volley after volley after volley after volley. We manage eventually to deploy some guns, and then the center breaks of the 2nd Division. Got to plug it with gap, plug it with reserve, send in more men. And 1600, we're here, we're firing away. All things are, the guns have deployed in that gap. We're blasting the rebels to pieces, but it's a touch and it's a very close run thing. We've no idea who's going to break first. All those numbers getting higher and higher show that the formations are breaking and falling apart, and the lines falling apart. Hapas 4, I give the order that I'm going to ride personally out to the right flank to make sure I'm not being flanked. All this time I've been riding to the cavalry, riding to Talbot's cavalry, riding to the Army of West Virginia, saying, "Come down on my flank, come down on the rebels' flank. They're out of their trenches. Now's the time. Hit them in the side." And they did not come. And I'm saying to them, if you don't hit them in the flank, we're going to break. We're going to fall back. Well, as it turned out, we held. Barely. So you can see I've got 2 units there. So those are half a brigade each. And then 3 batteries that have taken heavy hits. The units I've got have got red numbers on them, which means that they've taken severe casualties. They're much reduced in strength. But we held. We held that ridge. We held the big hill and the north knoll. The enemy still held the south knoll behind the lines, but it was very, very close. If the enemy had had 1 or 2 more units, or if they'd managed to get round our flank, we would have totally been destroyed. It would have been the end of 19 Corps. And at just that moment, General Sheridan rides up, and so we're able to tell him. You might remember a few weeks ago, I released a video of me singing very badly the 2nd verse of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. That's because during this firefight, it was reported by the GMs that my men had started singing. So I sang a song in support of them and posted it on the channel. Well, for some reason, so that's, let's go back. Why can't I go back? I'll go up. No, it doesn't want to go back. Oh well. Anyway, at 5 o'clock, I thought we'd won. We'd held the line. The enemy had retreated. Everything was going well. And then next thing I know, at 5:15, I get the order. Actually, the whole corps has fallen back, and I've been swept along with them. So my brave boys who'd held that hill, for some reason, something had happened. Something had spooked them, and they'd fallen back off the hill. Well, fortunately, my division commanders are back behind the lines, forming up the men who've retreated and broken and bringing them all back. You can see that every single one of those units has a red dot on it showing they've taken heavy casualties. They're all disordered to some degree, but they're being reformed and being rallied and ready to come back to the front. So by 5:30, I've given the order, let's go back up that hill. We've got to keep the pressure on them. We've got to show the rebels that we're still here. We've got to make them keep units holding that line. Because now I'm getting messages from the Army of West Virginia saying that they are engaging the enemy lines. Well, blast and darn them, why couldn't they have come to my assistance? Why couldn't they have come down on the flank of the rebels? We could have won the battle there and then. But anyway, they're engaging the breastworks and the forts in the north, and 6th Corps is engaging the breastworks and the forts on the left to the south. And so my division, my corps, has to form back up on those hills to show that we are still here, we're still a threat, to make the enemy hold those lines and not send reserves elsewhere. And at quarter to 6, 17:45 is 5:45, we've formed back up. Every single unit is heavily wounded, and there's contemplation, should we charge down the hill into those breastworks, into those heavily damaged rebel units? And no, because those still big batteries firing away there, and those enemies are entrenched. They're behind good, strong lines. And it's this time that General Talbot, the cavalry commander, decides to send me a very rude letter saying, it's all your fault. You failed, because your attack has failed and you've stopped attacking. We are now under severe threat. We've been attacked by a whole bunch of rebels. Well, good. Thank you, General Talbot. That was a very helpful message. My message in reply said, I have received your message. No reply. And so that's basically what happens. At 6 o'clock, the smoke starts to clear. I get a bigger view. The enemy have abandoned the South Knoll. I can see that General 6th Corps is there on my left, forming up. And so we're getting ready. We're going to bombard the city. We've cutting off their escape lines, all those sorts of things. And things are going all right. Well, this is the last. That was where the game was called. So this map, very blurrily, shows generally the formations and where we are. So on the left, the south, This map's turned sideways just so it fits nicer on the screen. 6th Corps are there. They've cut the roads out of Winchester to the south, and I think they're in a position to cut the roads leading west as well eventually. But that's well. XIX Corps, 19 Corps is there. You can see, as I've told my story already, of how we came to be in that position. 6th Corps have done very well. They've taken some of the enemy breastworks. They're threatening the city. They've lined up all their guns. They're battering the enemy. But the Army of West Virginia has attacked from the north without coordinating with the rest of the army, and have just arrived and thrown themselves at some breastworks, and the rebels have sent a whole bunch of reinforcements out to counterattack them. There's been some quite severe violence there, and the Army of West Virginia and the cavalry are being pushed back from the city. Well, that's about it. That was the end of the day. The sun was going down. The men were tired. All of my units were heavily wounded and engaged. My corps was in no position to attack further. You can also see there's lots of red dots on 6th Corps as well. They've also been heavily bloodied. The Army of West Virginia is in general retreat. They've been repulsed from the north. So yes, an interesting game. I wonder if Sheridan hadn't changed his mind. So you remember I had that picture of he'd ordered us to move up to the north. We would have come out just where it says AOWV, and the Army of West Virginia, we would have had 2 Corps there in the north, and perhaps we could have done something together. And 6th Corps could have just demonstrated against Winchester from the west, and the 2 of us from the north could have slammed into those defenses and maybe gotten right through. But Sheridan decided and by the same token, he sent 2 Corps onto the west instead. So if we'd coordinated better, perhaps we could have done a better job there as well. But in the end, the Union Army's done very well. We've killed General Early. We've captured whole divisions of rebel prisoners, and they've advanced to this town. The Army of West Virginia is broken there, but they'll reform. They'll rally, and they'll be back. And there's only really one escape route for the entire rebel army to take through the night, which is those roads, that road leading to the west. There's only one road leading to the west. All the other roads have been cut off. So I think they're in a big bit of trouble. Well, that's where the game was called to an end. So thanks to all who played. It's been a good couple of months of this game. So we've had updates, 15-minute turns every 2 or 3 days, which is pretty good. Thanks to the game managers and all the people who done. Well done, General Sheridan. You did well coordinating the division corps and things. My only criticism is to players who don't send dispatches. Why don't you send dispatches? For goodness sake. We're playing a game where you need to communicate. That's the whole point of the game. We're playing Kriegspiel. The whole point of Kriegspiel is how do you send a report to someone in a quick way saying where you are and what you're doing and what's going to happen next. If you don't send a report, the other players can't do anything. If you're a corps commander and you're not informing the general of the army what's happening, you're a bad corps commander. If you're a division commander and you're not informing your corps commander what's happening, you're a bad division commander. This game is all about writing dispatches. That's the whole point of a Kriegspiel, in my humble opinion. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been enjoyable to you. And that's about it. Cheerio.